Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It is such an opportunity to be here, to be able to share my story together with these amazing, accomplished, and very inspiring women in the tech industry. You know, back in 2013, when I graduated, I was full of hopes and ambition. I marched out the campus grounds, with confidence, very eager to find a dream job. And so during my college years, I would, often scribble my future plans everywhere, like in my notes, in my books, or even in just piece of brown envelope. Yes, this is an actual photo that I took way back in 2011, where I actually listed down what I would want to do at a certain age, what were the positions that I would want or hope to achieve. As early as third year college, I've always already had a vision of my career, what I hope to do and what I hope to become. And so you may be wondering how I got here, what made me or enabled me to become a manager in tech. So today I'm going to share my journey, how I progressed in my career, how I got promoted on these jobs, and how I landed the jobs in Singapore, how I sustained those roles here in Singapore, along with the setbacks and challenges that came along the way. So to start my journey, I came from Bacolod. So from my province, there wasn't really much opportunities back then, year of 2013. So I took my chances and flew to Manila. And before starting my professional work experience, I actually had freelance gigs as a graphics and UI designer. I was also a developer at that time using PHP as language. So I was doing both. I really love doing both, designing, programming, best of both worlds. So whenever I would think of whatever career path that I would want to take, I would be confused because I just don't know which one to take because I really love doing both. But when it comes to companies, I've always set my eyes with the multinational ones because it kind of felt cool, kind of felt impressive when you're working with the big companies such as Accenture, IBM, Microsoft. Those were like the popular companies back then. As a fresh grad, we would always want to be in those companies, and in particular, I remember it was Accenture because in our school, the previous batches were mostly employed in that company. And so I was one of those students who aspired to also join them. So that was my hopes before. And before embarking on the workplace, on my career, I need to decide, right? Which path should I take? Should I take the development path or software engineering path, or should I take the designer role? I was really torn, and it was the most difficult decision that I had to make 7 years ago. Because whatever decision that I'll be making, it will ultimately define the career path that I will take later on. But things turned out in a very unexpected way. So you can see here, this is Ortiga Center. This is where my first job is. I was with the final interview for a Ruby on Rails developer position. It was with the CEO of the company, and during that interview, it kind of like led to a discussion where he asked more of management questions, leadership questions, and I kind of expressed my passion towards it because back in school, I was very active in the student organization, in the student government. I was also the president of our ID society and have been actively involved with leadership involvements in school. So somehow he kind of like threw in those questions. I was able to answer, sure, but I didn't like think of it as something that would really have like a certain outcome or something, because I was actually confused that time because I was applying for a Ruby on Rails developer, right? But he was asking me those types of questions. And the following day, I received an offer letter from that company. And to my surprise, the role was not for a developer. the role was for an associate project manager. So somehow he saw the potential in me during that interview. And now I'm torn with deciding three paths to take, which path to take. Developer going with Accenture, designer going to a designer firm, or will I take a chance or take a risk of joining this startup company who offers me an associate project manager role? And so I chose this path. I took in the role as an associate project manager, and that's how my management career started. I took the most unconventional way, as you can see. And that time, it really felt surreal because it was something that I didn't apply for. It kind of felt that it was just given to me by the heavens. And it kind of lurked in me, the doubts. If this is the first biggest uncertainty, biggest question to myself, because I felt that I was not ready for that role. So I was having unreadiness and doubts on myself. I felt that I'm not ready. I'm not sure if I can do it. Like, what if I fail, right? And so the imposter syndrome is starting to, kick in, screaming loudly, saying that I'm destined to fail if this is something that I would do. But eventually, I winged it and proceeded with this journey. But along the way, I actually struggled hard. It wasn't an easy one, but it wasn't on the part where I was wondering how to go about the process, the tools, the technologies on the projects. All of those can actually be learned. Most of the problems that I had were people problems. And the struggle was always to, earning everyone's respect or trust. Like, are they going to take me seriously? So that was the biggest challenge in me. People would often question me, like, why am I a manager? I didn't have like the professional coding experience, right? How did I get there? And it was a continuous struggle for me, but I didn't give up. What I did was I worked hard to learn about our companies, the ins and outs of the projects, how to manage our clients, all the tools, day and night, endless nights of studying and studying and studying until I get to master what the company is trying to do or what we're trying to accomplish. And somehow I conquered those. And after 6 months, I was promoted to project manager. It was actually the quickest promotion that I have by far as of this day. So it really helped going above and beyond my role. Sure, there was a time that I would stay up late in the company. I would double the hours of working, even during weekends, but it was a challenge that I accepted, and I should be in it. Like, I have to double the efforts so that my team or our team can acknowledge that I am fit for the job. So it was a continuous struggle to, be recognized, be accepted in the company. So apart from that, we had this biggest project that we've worked with. And I can say that this was the most proud of moment during that time. So we were tasked to automate the process of procurement to address the infamous pork barrel scam in 2013. So you're familiar with, of course, Napolis. So it was actually our company who did the automation system for them. So all is well. And in my first job, I kind of learned these two key lessons. One, that is, showing your commitment to becoming better. Like, it doesn't matter how bad you started. It doesn't matter if you made a mistake. Just learn from it and commit to becoming better, because people will actually see it And when people will see how you're committed to the job, they will start to respect you and they will start to acknowledge you. And second, I learned that, showing you're not there to boss them around, not to work above them, but with them. As a young manager, I've always struggled to, have that authority, really establishing yourself as the boss, as the manager, but, it just doesn't work. When the team can sense that you're not working with them, that you're just working for your glory, everything else will, not fall into place. I remember this one time where there's this team member. He was having performance issues at work, and he was not delivering the task on time. And we had this heated argument, and it ended up me saying, "Don't tell me, show me." So it's like such a diva, right? It was a wrong thing to do. Instead of asking what was the problem, instead of asking that person, how can I help you? How can we help you? I was desperate to show my authority because of, the lack of experience, because of me trying to always have to struggle to find my place. So it is about working with your people and not working above your people. So you need to learn from me because I learned it the hard way. So this was my first team, and I was really thankful. I didn't regret any, single decision that I made before, even though I didn't, proceed with going with the multinational company, which is Accenture. I learned a lot from this startup that, working with teams, how to manage difficult and very complex projects, exposed me to mostly government projects as well. It was a joy to be with them. And so the first career arc reinvention that I realized is that starting small is okay. It doesn't matter if the team is small, if the company is small, you just have to start somewhere to get to where you are today. So that's for my first company. And on to my second journey was I joined another consulting firm. So that time I started as a project manager and eventually got promoted to a PMO delivery lead. So in this role, I was able to manage other project managers under me. And I was only 23 back then. It's the same issues, same struggles or challenges that came along the way during my second job. So this was in BGC. It wasn't easy to kind of work with bigger teams and bigger projects because I was used to working with a lean team. So this company really sharpened my project management skills and allowed me to grow further as a leader. There were two key moments that I can really say that was a highlight of my stay in there that kind of gave me an insight to how management or leadership is as a personal experience to me. So there's this one time when there's this team member who would address me as, Miss Cat. Okay. So back in Philippines, when the hierarchy, the higher hierarchy, we kind of like address them in a senior manner. So like, let's say sir, miss, or ma'am. So that was kind of like the case for me as well. And then when this team member knew about my age, she suddenly stopped addressing me Miss Cat and just started to address me by my first name. I mean, I don't really mind at all. It's totally okay. But the way of how that team member also communicated with me after knowing my age, it kind of like was gave a difference. So from there on, I started to realize, at least in Philippines, age is a factor to how the level of respect is shown to you. So that was from a personal experience. And second is that, as this company is bigger, competition is more fierce. Back in my first job, I was the only project manager, but this time there were almost 20 of us. And there's this one colleague who just doesn't like me. There was a time where we were actively pitching in ideas, taking in initiatives, and I was actively voicing out my opinions, feedback, things like that. And he, just blurted out, I'll need to say this in Tagalog. He said, "Si Jollibee ka ba? Pabida ka kasi." And wow, that was, he said that in front of the team, in front of my colleagues. Back then, I felt unbothered. At the end of the day, you just have to, shake it off or, just move on from it. And I remembered that my mentor once told me, earning friends at work is a bonus. Like, you don't go to work expecting to make friends. And that's why you have to keep things in a professional manner. So two of the notable projects that I've worked there was, you'll be familiar with this. If you've been to the airports and major establishments in Philippines, I'm sure you've somehow connected to the free Go Wi-Fi hotspot. So I was part of the pioneering team for this Go Wi-Fi auto product, and also was a project manager for doing captive portal deployments for Go Wi-Fi. And in this here, you can see the bill via text. It's for the postpaid subscribers. In this project, we were able to gain exemplary performance on the project, and that the team won a CTO award. During that time in that consulting firm, I was actually promoted twice. And with my latest promotion, they endorsed me to work with a senior management team in Globe. And so let me share with you the 3 key factors of how I got those promotions. 1, happy clients. Since it's a consulting firm, the feedback was very direct, coming from the client, going to the company. So if clients are happy, then the company will have good reputation, and it speaks well of you as well. So that was the number 1 factor. It kind of also reflected into the KPIs of my role or of my job. Second is word of mouth. Truth be told, it is indeed a popularity contest. So you need to show your skills. You need to be visible with everyone. You need people to back you up and speak good words of you. And I believe that was a very big influence to how I got my promotion, because I was working heavily with leaders in the organization, and also trying to maintain the rapport and the relationship with them, at the same time establishing or showcasing my skills and exemplary performance. So that is very, very important. And lastly, which is the most critical of all, is visibility of work performance to senior management. Like, none of these would actually make sense if these are not being seen by the senior stakeholders or senior management in your organization. Like, you have to showcase your skills, your potential to them. You have to make yourself known, and you have to make it visible. So those are the 3 factors of how I got those 2 promotions in that consulting firm. So everything is falling into place. You may think that I was on my way to climbing the ladder, but honestly, back then I kind of felt unhappy and still unsatisfied. I was struggling to find, let's say, meaning with what I'm doing. I felt that I was missing something. Like, I wanted to learn more. I wanted to work with global teams. Wanted to work on something different. And so I decided, like after working for 4 years in Manila, to try out Singapore. And it was indeed a big risk. Okay, so I was just fortunate that I had friends there who took care of me during my job hunting period. And, they would always remind me of like not being choosy whenever or when I would be able to, receive an offer or get a job. So the most important thing is to get your foot into the door. So that was actually, my biggest dilemma during that time, because it was so uncertain. I left a good career back then in Manila to explore to this new territory. So I don't know what will happen. And then it kind of lurked in me on this second uncertainty, which is the complacency for security. Like, will I get a job in line with my role? Like, what if the company is not good, or am I willing to downgrade just to get a job? Being complacent with whatever that, being offered, or just accepting whatever that will be, not being choosy. It's quite a common story if you have like friends or people who that are working abroad. And this is not something that's new. It's quite a common OFW story, right? If you've seen this movie, Hello, Love, Goodbye, yeah, so where the protagonist, like Kathleen, she was a graduate of nursing, but she flew to Hong Kong to take her chances, opportunities, but eventually ended up to work as a domestic helper for a while. So yeah, the fear of having to be in that trap or be in that direction is somehow addressing to me. And I was so scared at that time. Really came to a point where I was okay with just taking any job that I would receive. It was not hard. It was not easy, rather. So out of the 200 applications that I've sent over the 2 months, I only received 2 interview invitations. For a while, I kind of felt that I was not that competent to be working in Singapore. Like, employers are not looking at my CV or resume, or like they're not interested with what I can bring to the table. So I felt hopeless for a brief time, but I realized that I should be giving my best shot with these 2 interview invitations that I had. So I really prepared, and thankfully, I received the regional project manager job. I got the job in an online dating company. So it's not as if that I had a choice that time, since I only had like 2 choices, and right, it was back then the only choice, and I had to like make do of that opportunity. But looking back, I started to realize that it's not as bad as I think. In fact, it was really great. So for that experience, the notable product that we were building that time was dating app. So if you're familiar with Tinder, so it's like Tinder for Asia, also swipe left, swipe right. It's just tailored or localized to the specific markets. And I'll be honest that at first, I kind of like, I'm not proud of it, because in Philippines, it was still a taboo. Online dating was still a taboo back in 2017. And if like people would know that you're working for an online dating company, they would think that you're working for a scam company. That was my or probably like the vibe that I was getting back then. So yeah, but eventually, I learned to love the product, learned to love the process. Of course, the team that I'm working with, it's just a misjudgment in place. So along the way, while working globally, I managed to learn in the process for these key areas. So for the working culture, I realized that it's very fast paced. The teams are very agile, and it was the first time that I was able to handle remote teams. So it kind of like also prepared me to what was about to come, right? So for this company, almost 80% of the teams are remotely relocated. So we have teams from Taiwan, Korea, Russia, Italy, US. So the teams are everywhere. And I had to like strategically plan how to manage the projects and how to manage or lead the teams, given that very different working or varying time zones, and of course varying cultures as well. And that leads me to the next one, which is the diverse teams. There were different races, different cultures, and this also means different ways of managing people and different ways of handling conflicts. And this is where I really learned how to approach the people problems in a very unique way. Back then, it was only Philippines that I was thinking of, like how we were working back then, how Pinoys are working, but now it's more global. So it's a really good challenge as a manager. And lastly, for market localization. So back then, of course, we only have Philippines. You get to solve problems in only one market, but now we're catering of up to 4 markets in the APAC region. So we get to think of ways on how to solve problems based on each of the market's behavior, patterns, and also based on their culture. So it's a really amazing experience working with this team. I've also had exposure to other countries thanks to this company. We went to company trips in Japan. We have regional offices in Taiwan and Korea, and also got to experience the product conference. So the company sent me in the US to attend this, and I was really, really thankful for that. It's all these are like so unexpected for something that was, like the only choice back then. It's really amazing. Also, with this, I am able to network more with, other professionals in the industry. These exposures, these opportunities, I just kind of felt that, I felt lucky, because not everyone would have, this chance. And I was able to still, work on my, let's say, line of discipline, which is, of course, the project management. I was able to work with a good product team, with a good product as well. And again, for something that's a last resort, this went unexpectedly great. Cheryl said it best, that careers are a jungle gym, not a ladder. She also said that ladders are, ups and downs and on and offs, but jungle gyms are for creative exploration. Like, it allows you to experiment on the things that would enable you to find what you truly want to do. And, she said it beautifully when she mentioned that, that there's only one way to get to the top of the ladder, but there are many ways to get to the top of a jungle gym. And so that goes to my second career arc, reinvention, that it's not about the title, but it's really about the thing that you do and the impact of the things that you do to the people or the products or services that you're working on. So that would be so far the experience. And 6 years down the line, I kind of like had a sense of what I would want to do and what is the role that I would want to take on next. So you can see that being a project manager for 6 years. So at the back of my mind, I was hoping to lean towards the direction of product management, and work was bliss until COVID happened. And during COVID, dating app on a startup, We struggled hard during the pandemic, mainly because during this circuit breaker, no one was allowed to go out. There were lots of restrictions, and it really affected of how the business operated. And the unfortunate happened. This was actually the period when I got laid off. And I knew that I was not alone. So there was a shrinking foreign workforce in Singapore as early as March 2020. That's not even like starting the circuit breaker. It's just how the pandemic was about to rise. But there were already 21,900 employees that got laid off during that time. And Singapore's economy in total, it kind of worsened the recession. Since its independence in 1965, you can see it's a 5.4% drop, and 12.7% of foreign workers were actually laid off. So it was, a very traumatizing time to be in, and to be laid off during that period, knowing that you still have these unknowns. It was again traumatizing. It spiraled through a series of problems, affected my mental health, and the fear of having to go back to Philippines, and the fear of having to redo, let's say, my career, or how it would affect my career. It was really dreadful. I only had 30 days back then. My work visa has already expired. I still didn't have a job, and I was in my tourist visa. Okay, I started to apply. I started to, in the hopes of getting a job. And there's this one fintech company who offered me this role, but then weeks later they retracted. They would also need to do a series of layoffs. So I said to myself at that time that I just got laid off twice. So it was really hard. I was hopeless at the time. And this third biggest uncertainty, which is, the fear to reset, like what will happen to my career? Will I be back to square one? Like what if I won't find another opportunity? And worst is, will I even find a job? And yeah, it was a very defining moment of my life back then. But we all know what happened, because I'm here doing this talk. So thankfully, I was able to land a job in, of course, the one of the biggest e-commerce marketplace in the APAC region. It was how do you call it? Like, kind of miraculous also, because I only had less than a month to find that job, and it was game over for me. So how I actually persevered, or how I was able to manage through those hardships, let me share with you. Number one is really not giving up. That is very important, to have a positive mindset, because that kind of fueled me to look for better ways, look for more jobs, and look for more opportunities, network with people, really finding all the ways how to go through these trying times. And second, I've often refined my CV. It's all about strategizing how you would want to be contacted by recruiters or employers. So most of the time I would tailor my CV to the job posts. I had series of iterations of my CVs and lots of versions of my CVs just to get a job that time. And lastly, of course, intensive studying and practice for interviews. All I did during that time was devoted to studying and really putting in the effort and doubling down the work, doubling down the practice for interviews, so that I get to land a job. And in retrospect, I would remember thinking to myself that during the pandemic, it's not about pursuing your dreams yet. It's okay to put your dreams on hold, because it's about survival. But that seemingly survival or once thought out survival actually made a significant impact to my career right now. And 1 year later, I realized there were lots of wins and gains by pursuing into this direction, and how this company actually positioned me amidst the COVID situation or the pandemic. So now I was able to manage projects at scale with millions of users in the APAC region, which I never got to experience before. Now I'm leading a team of 100 plus with multiple cross teams in the organization. So unlike before, it's mostly lean teams managing just 20, 30 people. But now I got this opportunity to work at large. And third, of course, revisited and strengthened my technical domain. For the past 6 years, it was all about on the business side, more on the product side. And this time it's more reviewing on the part or the core of tech, which is really vital as we, move along my career journey, especially when you're in the tech industry. Like, you have to still be technical. And fourth, able to work with, of course, more diverse teams, expanded my network further, and I'm in an industry that will never be affected by the pandemic. And in fact, it even flourished during the pandemic because everyone was just, doing offline shopping. So that goes to my third career arc reinvention, which is having to accept and maximize your current opportunity. Because again, in these trying times, not everyone is presented with these chances. So there you have it. From starting as an associate project manager with zero experience in management, on to becoming who I am today, or what I'm doing now, or where I'm with. It's indeed a ride. And before as I end my talk, I wanted to impart these 3 things or reminders to everyone as we embark on the unknown. One, that is embrace the future with optimism. So, as a new generation approaches, it kind of like sets this fear of competition, because the previous generation had earlier access to technology, had earlier access to the tools. But instead of seeing that as a threat, we should see it as an opportunity, as a motivation for us to strive better and to work alongside with them, like complementing the strengths of these 2 generations. Second is never letting these setbacks dim your light. Whatever that happened in the past, it doesn't really define what you can do in the future and what you can hope to become in the future. So it should never be a hindrance to what you wanted to do. And lastly, believing in the process and trusting that the dots will somehow connect. And I actually got that from my favorite, one of my favorite tech leaders, of course, Sir Steve Jobs. Said it beautifully. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. So have courage, believe in yourself, because what's meant to be will always find its way. Thank you.